What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be talking about 10 mistakes that all beginner wide receivers make and that you want to avoid. Now, the first mistake that beginner wide receivers make, fellas, has to do with their stance, and that's when they are in their receiver stance, they do not have enough weight onto their front foot. Whether they're standing really tall, whether they're kind of sitting back, whatever the case may be, if you don't have a lot of weight on your front foot, that's going to be the first foot that's going to step on your route, creating a false step. So if I'm like this, set, go, the ball snapped, guys love to take this like false step, and then the first step of their route is like half or maybe even more than that of where their first step should be. So where you want to be in your receiver stance is you want to have about 70% of your weight into your front foot. You want to think your knee is even with the middle part of your foot. You're at a 90-degree angle and your back leg is at a 90-degree angle. Very important that your heel is off the ground. You don't want to be flat because it's going to give you a slow get off as well. But 90-90, 70%, knee to the middle arch, set, go, and you roll into your front shin. It's here. So your first step off the ball is explosive. It gains ground and you could get up into your route fast. Now, the next mistake has to do with off the line as well, fellas, but it's going to be your hand technique as a receiver. A lot of times receivers make two crystal clear mistakes. Hands are too low, so if a DB decides to shoot hands and press coverage, they don't have the amount of time to be able to react. Number two, their hands are too tight, up tall, right? Now, your hands can be up here, but you need to be relaxed, you guys. Like, think of it like fighting, for example, right? Everybody says, oh, you want to have your hands up in boxing, obviously, or like MMA, whatever you're doing. Yes, but what they also teach you is to be relaxed. They don't want you to have your hands up and be super tense because you have no range of motion, right? Same thing when you're up against press coverage. If your hands want to be up here, I have no problem with it. Relax your traps, relax your shoulders so you have range of motion. Or just have them right here by your waist. That's what I would recommend because you're guaranteed going to be relaxed and you'll be able to have enough time and enough space to swat the DB's hands. Just do not be super tense and do not be super low. Now, fellas, before we get into the rest of this video, if you are a quarterback or wide receiver watching this and you would like to train with our staff of coaches and myself, we're traveling out to 15 different cities across the entire country for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camps. So, guys, want some more information? Go to that very first link in the description below. That is where you can sign up. Next city that we're coming to is San Francisco, California. Then we're going to be heading out to Orlando, Florida, Phoenix, Arizona, Columbia, South Carolina. After that, we'll be heading out to Seattle, Washington. Then we'll be coming out to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Nashville, Tennessee, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Austin, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia, Denver, Colorado. Then after Denver, we'll be coming out to Columbus, Ohio, Boston, Massachusetts, Salt Lake City, Utah, and finishing it off in Los Angeles, California. So, guys, you want some more information, you want to sign up, very first link in that description below. All of these camps will sell out within the next 3 months, and we won't have any more available spots. So make sure you take advantage of the fact that we have open spots, fellas. Very first link below. Let's get back to this video. Now, fellas, the next thing that I don't like that receivers do, one of the biggest mistakes they make off the ball is having their hands X'd on their waist. So that's the same thing as resting your hands on your knee, just simply because, like, if a guy shoots hands, you have to take them off and then be able to swat, which can make us a split second behind. Same idea if we're here and my hands are X. A lot of receivers do this because they think it looks good, and I get it, I understand. If it's zone coverage, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. But if your hands are X'd like this, you have to open up to be able to swat, and that makes us a split second late, especially if a DB has a good punch to try to get hands. So remember, hands nice and relaxed, either by your waist, up by your chest, but relax those shoulders and relax those traps so you can swat. Now, fellas, the next mistake receivers will make is having early hands on a deep ball. So what does that exactly mean? So if I'm running like a fade ball, deep post, and I have a DB who's right on my inside hip, more often than not, he's not playing the football than playing us. What he's doing is he's playing our hands. So if we're running and he sees our hands start to shoot up, what's he going to do? He's going to know exactly where to shoot his hands through and make a play on the ball. So what you have to do is you want to be late with your hands. You want to catch this football anywhere from, like, I would say just above your belly button all the way up to your chest. So you're running downfield, that ball is thrown, I want to show my hands late because that gives the DB less time to react, less time to play your hands, and you could quickly put this thing to the tuck so you can make a play. Now, fellas, the next mistake beginner wide receivers will make when it comes to their hands is peeking upfield too early when they're catching the ball. So a lot of times guys will be running over the middle, ball will be thrown, they'll be tracking the ball, they'll see it hit their hands, but as they go upfield to score, they will take their eyes off the ball, and that will cause them to drop it. Now, here's the thing. Anytime I talk about looking the football into the tuck, what people will say is that if you spend too much time doing this, you're going to get your head taken off in a game. And that's true. It's something to work in practice, so in a game, the habit is much quicker. So in practice, when you don't have a defense out there, it's versus air, you're just warming up with a quarterback, when that ball hits your hands, you want to look it into the tuck. So in a game, you could do that process quickly. The ball's thrown to you, catch tuck, but you're washing it all the way and it just happens faster so you get upfield. So don't take off without that football, fellas, and you need more consistent catching. Now, fellas, the next mistake beginner wide receivers will make is raising up with their chest before they have to run a route where they have to drop their hips. So I'm talking about routes like curls, comebacks, hitches, digs, whatever the case may be. So you got to understand that a DB in man coverage, even sometimes in zone where he's playing the quarterback then looking at us, he's watching our hips and our body language. So if I'm running a route, like obviously when we break on a comeback or a curl, we have to get low. Like the goal position is to be able to drop to like a 90-degree angle so I could decelerate and make a sharp cut, right? Now, a lot of guys, to be able to drop low right before they cut, they raise up so they could drop their entire like pad level and body language low. Can't do that, because the second you raise your chin and your chest up, your hips raise, tells the DB a break's coming, he's gonna sit. So what you gotta think is you're pulling a sled. I'm sure some of you have seen that like speed sled that guys will run with. Keep your chin down, pull the sled, and trust the hips into the break so you don't give away the route and give that indicator to the DB. Now, fellas, the next mistake that a lot of guys do on routes, not where they only have to drop their hips, but even routes where you have to cut off on one foot, is chopping and shortening their stride before they make a cut. So let's say I got a cut at 10 yards. A lot of receivers, because they're not confident in their cuts, maybe they lack strength in their legs, maybe they haven't repped it out enough going at a full speed run, they'll come off, they'll start out fast, then right before the cut, they take these happy feet steps, then they cut. As soon as you start shortening your stride, that tells a DB a break is coming. So what we got to get in the habit of doing is running routes off of steps or looking at the yardage through my peripheral and having my eyes up. A lot of times guys will chop their feet because they got to run a route at 10 and they start looking down, oh crap, I'm at 10, and then they cut. Guys, play with your eyes up, be looking forward, either count steps in your head like your third outside, fifth step total, whatever it is, and be able to cut without shortening that stride so DBs don't have an idea of when you're making a break. Now, fellas, the next mistake we're going to go over has to do with press coverage. So remember we talked about in man coverage, what's a DB supposed to be looking at on us? Our hips. So a lot of times on a release, receivers will sell the release with their head and their shoulders, but not their hips. So let's say, for example, I have a DB who's right in front of me and I want him to move to the outside. A lot of times guys will throw a cut, but their hips don't actually do anything, but they lean with their head and their shoulders. They'll do this. That's not going to get a disciplined DB. A DB who has bad eyes, which essentially means he's looking at your head and your shoulders, that'll get him every time. But a DB who's keyed in on your hips will not move. So guys, whenever you're selling your releases, you got to think your belly button needs to turn in the side that you're faking to. So if the sideline's over here to my right and I want this DB to jump, I want my belly button to try to turn. I want to sell with my hips. I want my hip to be attached to my foot, and I want to throw my hip into the break, because that's what gets a disciplined DB to jump. So be less of a head and shoulder guy and sell more with your hips. Now, the next mistake, fellas, that beginner wide receivers will make is not knowing how to run like the awkward routes. So a route, for example, that we're going to discuss is a dig route versus inside shade press. So a lot of receivers think that whenever they have to run an inside breaking route, like an in route, a post route, a curl, mandatory they must get an inside release. That's not the case. The release that you take, unless it's predetermined by the play, a lot of times plays will predetermine like, hey, mandatory outside release, mandatory inside release. Okay, fine, that's a different story. But if they don't clarify that, your release is based on where the DB is playing you in terms of leverage. Is he inside leverage? Is he outside leverage? Is he head up? So if I have to run a 10-yard in and this guy's inside shade press, my goal is not let's make him miss and then go to the inside, because he is going to do whatever possible to hold that leverage. That is his job when he's playing that leverage, and I need to know that as a receiver. A lot of receivers can't do this, you guys. They panic as soon as they get up to the line. So if I have inside shade press, my goal is, okay, I'm going to make him think I'm going inside to move him, because he's got to protect his leverage. Then I'm going to release outside. And my goal is to either stack him, which is where he's trailing behind me and I give him a move, or if he's right on my hip, I'm going to break down and drop my hips, not raise up like we talked about earlier, swat and cut under him. So being able to run those awkward routes will make you a much better wide receiver and will give you an advantage on a lot of the other receivers on your team, because not only beginner wide receivers don't do this, receivers who have been playing for a long time still don't know how to do this. Now, fellas, the last mistake that I want to cover is looking back too early on a deep ball. So a lot of times what receivers will do is they'll have to run a fade. They'll have press coverage, inside shade, maybe he's 2 to 3 yards off. They'll give a release and they'll work this DB. They'll beat him, he'll move, they get separation off the ball, and then they lose it because as soon as they turn upfield, they start looking back for the ball right away. And as soon as you start looking back for the ball, guess what happens? You're running slower, you guys. So we need to have the mindset on a fade ball. I am not looking until I'm open. if that makes sense. Now again, take that like with a grain of salt. It doesn't mean run 30 yards and look for the ball, because the quarterback ain't gonna be able to put it out there. But I would say for about, like if we're on the goal line doing this, when you get to about the 10, 12 yard line, that's when you wanna look back. Get some space and focus on keeping the space by putting your head down and going before you look back for the ball. Communicate to your quarterback. Throw it to a spot, put it with some air, I'm gonna go get there. And when you guys have that trust in each other, it makes it a lot easier to accomplish this. So do not look back for the ball right away on fade. Keep that head down, push, and get separation with your release, but keep separation by keeping your head down.